I'd like to welcome everybody to the Swanee River Water Management Governing Board meeting. It's January the 13th at 9 a.m. The meeting is available on YouTube link, and I can give you that address, https, and it's youtube.com at Swanee River Water Management District. We'll call the meeting to order. I'm Charles Keith, the secretary. Our chair and vice chair are both absent and out of the state and ill. So I'll be calling the meeting to order. We can start with our prayer and pledge. If everybody will stand. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for all your many blessings. Father, we praise you and love you for watching over us and guiding our steps. Father, I thank you for this staff of hardworking people that are dedicated to preserving the water for the residents of this area. Father, we give you the honor and the glory for all these efforts. Father, I pray for this board as they prepare to take on the business with the hand. Father, I pray that you'll lead us and guide us in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Robin, roll call. Here. 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 Very good. At this time, I'm going to call for appointment of a chair pro tem. Do I have a motion on the board?
I have a motion to have Mr. Thompson as the chair.
I have a motion and a second.
I'll second.
All approved?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'll pass the gavel to Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. It's a pleasure today to chair this board. It's unfortunate that the chair and the vice chair couldn't be here today. At this time, is there any amendments to the agenda? At this time, we'll entertain public comment. I have one here, Miss Joanne Trimley. Morning.
Board of the Water Management District. I'm a big fan of water, so I'm very interested in the decisions that are being made here. Given that I just have a few minutes, I have 3 concerns that I wanted to bring to the board. My number 1 concern is the drought. My other concern is the Water First for North Florida program, and my third is the Edwards Bottomland. I'll quickly address all 3. The first, I just want to say that when I moved back here in '92, we only had 13 million people in the state of Florida, and our population in the 30 years has since almost doubled. And during that time, since the 1990s, we've had about 3 significant droughts, but what makes them worse is, of course, the rainfall preceding the droughts, and we really have had very little rainfall preceding this current dry spell that we're experiencing. And when I was looking up what we can do, and I understand that there was a workshop last month, and I did watch the workshop on YouTube, and I was very interested to learn that there didn't seem to be a plan, but when I looked online, I found that the National Drought Action Plan, that there is actually, the Florida DEP does have an action plan, and it's really well spelled out. It has all sorts of, it's well thought out. It has agricultural and industrial consumptive user. It addresses those. It addresses communication. It addresses education. So I'm really excited that we do have an outline to work from. So I'll I'm guessing you all know about this, so I don't need to say any more. I'm also concerned that our strategic plan, the 2025-2029 strategic plan for our water district does not mention drought management or water conservation. And we should probably consider that now that our population is growing so much and our water resources really aren't. They're pretty much fixed. So that's something to look forward to in the future. Okay, the other thing is the Water First North Florida project makes me think of Popeye. Remember when Wimpy used to say, "I'll gladly play you Tuesday for a hamburger today"? So I think we're putting a lot of expectations for the water recharge that this project can afford us without them or us, without the St. John's or the Swanee River Water Management Districts making the efforts necessary to reduce our water consumption all across the board. And that's all I need to say. I'm looking forward to the presentation today that'll go into more detail. And finally, the Edwards Bottomland outside of Stark, you know, where they put in all those, what are they called, oxbows? So they put in a bunch of oxbows, but they filled up with debris because we've had a couple of semi-wet years and it filled up with debris and the debris hasn't been cleared up. And now is the perfect time to finish that project. There was a presentation, or there was a the Water Management District actually visited the Edwards Bottomland back in, what was it, September? I can't read my notes. Oh, August. Okay, and there's a couple of problem areas that still exist, revealing significant issues that will reduce the flow of stormwater during significant rain events, which we will probably have again, I'm sure. So I implore that we look at that and make sure those are cleared before we do get a significant rain, because flooding along Stark is very problematic because it just sends the water into the communities. And that's all I have to share. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Emily. Thank you for coming today and expressing your concerns. Has everybody had a chance to look over the consent agenda? And if so, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Consent agenda carries. Do we have a report from the cooperating agencies today?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board. Appreciate all of y'all being here today with that. From a cooperating agency standpoint, I would like to recognize that the Department of Environmental Protection, we have two of their staff members here. We have Nick Diegel. Nick is the Operations Review Specialist with the Department of Environmental Protection, and then also assisting him is a relatively new employee, I believe, Aiden Amos. He's an Environmental Specialist 1 with that, and they work with Jen Adams, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but they also work on our budget and putting our prelim budget and tentative budget, assisting our staff and getting that done, amongst other things. While I do have the podium, I do want to recognize, and this is, some of this is to try to help prepare for Robbie's presentation and also for the presentation that Amy will be bringing forward on the Water Advisory. But I did want to thank the legislature, our governor, and the Department of Environmental Protection. You'll see this in the materials today. I believe Mary will be presenting it to the board, but we're very appreciative of the alternative water supply funding that the district has been awarded. It's coming to the board today for approval to receive that funding. We put in for and we have the option to receive $4.2 million in alternative water supply. And what we're intending on doing with that funding is a portion of it will be used for feasibility study to evaluate water storage around our district, such that during times of high water conditions, opposite where we're at now, but we have been there before. But, what's the feasibility of being able to store some of that water and then utilize that water whenever conditions dry out some? And then also moving forward with our water use monitoring and metering program from the Department of Ag, from the Department of Environmental Protection, such that we'll be able to more fully automate the reporting of water use in here. We did also are able to receive $3 million in our Ag Cost Share Program. That money will be used primarily for irrigation efficiency improvements. We've had great participation with that and want to be able to continue to upgrade those irrigation systems going forward. And then another funding source is the agricultural regional projects that the commissioner announced earlier in December. But we submitted a proposal somewhat as a pilot project with that, but looking at incentivizing the end-gun removal on center pivot irrigation systems with that. Most producers, if you speak with them, while the end-gun acreage does help them with production, typically the quality of production that you have there is not up to par with what it is under the more efficient remainder of the system. And it's also the most problematic part of an irrigation system from a repair perspective. So we did receive an award. We're still in the process of getting the contract put into place for that funding. But I think all of that speaks to where we are at with our surface water and groundwater conditions now. And as Amy will present later today on the advisory side of things, trying to make people aware, one, of our water conditions, but on the other side of that, trying to be as efficient as possible with water use going forward. So we look forward to getting those programs into place, and we'll keep the board updated with that. Mr. Chair, that's I wanted to add that in just kind of as a precursor to the presentation. You see on the agenda where we do have an agenda change. Amy will be following our legal presentation this morning, or our legal section, I guess, with it. And then I do have service recognitions also. If you'd like, I'd go ahead and move forward with that.
Please do.
Okay.
Good enough.
Well, just kidding, Mary. But Mary has been with the district for 10 years, and she's done a stellar job for the district. She joined in January of 2016, and she currently serves as the office chief for our environmental projects within the Resource Management Division. So a lot of these projects that you're hearing about, she will help guide them through completion on there. She began her career working in the ERP department on the permitting, and then 6 years later moved into the projects side of it. And that's where she leads project delivery and oversees the contracts that support the district's missions. Mary holds a bachelor's degree in biological engineering from the University of Florida. Go Gators. And she's a licensed civil professional engineer and a certified floodplain manager, and is currently pursuing a master's degree in environmental engineering at UF as well. So Mary, thank you for your service here.
Thank you.
And if you'll stick around for a minute, I think Joy's going to want to get a photo here. Next up is David King. David? Many of you have engaged with David since his time here. David's been here with us 5 years, and he's a licensed professional geologist. He joined the district in January of 2021 in the group that was then called the Division of Business and Community Services as a senior hydrologist. He's since been promoted to the Water Use Services Office Chief and now works in the Resource Management and Projects Division. And he administers the water use permitting and water well construction program for the district, and does a great job for us. Very personable, engaging with our applicants, and working with our permittees for their needs. During his first 5 years at the district, the water use program has processed over 500 water use permits, and the water well construction program has processed many more than that, given the amount of residential development that we've had. And he has also, unfortunately, had to work through several enforcement actions relative to water well construction. The Water Use Services staff, along with Leroy and Warren, have updated the rules for water use permits and for water well construction. David has given significant input to that rule development and the changes that have occurred with that, some of which we have in our board meeting today. During his past 5 years, he's seen his second youngest daughter graduate from Brantford High School, youngest daughter start Brantford Elementary, and the birth of his first granddaughter in Perry. David's looking forward to the next 5 years and longer, and the new challenges that we'll have with the Lower Santa Fe and Ichetucknee going forward, and meeting more of the wonderful people in the district. So David, this will keep you hydrated. Yeah. You want to do the pictures? All right. If we can borrow the board for a few moments. Front and center.
On behalf of the board, Mary and David, thank you for your service to the district. We really appreciate you guys. Tom, you got anything for us today?
I just had one thing that was approved on consent, and thank you for that. And otherwise, I don't have anything to report today unless you have questions of me.
All right, Dr. Brown?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you for accommodating the shift in the schedule for this week. What we're going to do is I'll go through the Water Resource Division items, and as a part of that, we'll present the hydrologic conditions report. I think that will help because that'll put the hydrologic conditions closer to the advisory discussion that we're going to have. So for Water Resources, we have 3 items. The first is just a general Water Resource Division update. And then Robbie, as I mentioned, will come up to do the hydrologic conditions report, and then I'll come back up for a water shortage advisory recommendation. In terms of water resource updates, there are 3 areas to update. The first is that the LSFI, the Lower Santa Fe and Ichetucknee, the rule was filed for adoption on December 31st of 2025. The components of that rule are available on DEP's website, and the additional regulatory measures would require ratification prior to becoming effective. So we will keep you up to date and on what is going on in the legislative session as that work progresses. The second is the Water First North Florida project. That project is moving forward with negotiations with the top-ranked firm that is being led out of the St. John's district, but this district is participating in the process of negotiations and will be involved in the contract for the siting study for the treatment wetland and the recharge facilities, the conceptual study that will be going on. So the district will remain involved, and we'll keep you posted again as work on that progresses. But at this point, they're still in the negotiation process with the top-ranked firm to try to establish a contract. We also continue to monitor water conditions in the district. So Robbie will provide item number 11, the hydrologic conditions report for December, and then I'll be back up afterwards to bring item number 12. So happy to take any questions on just the general updates, or I can let Robbie give the hydrologic conditions update.
The only comment I would have, and I haven't spoken to you directly about this, Dr. Brown, but I have with you and a couple of the other staff. On the Water First project, I think the key is going to be communication
Yes, sir.
with the public. The first statements that were put out were a little vague, and I think that the more knowledge or the more information we can put out in the public, the more support there's going to be for it.
Yes, sir. We'll work with our communication staff here to try to get a message that's clear out to people.
Okay.
All right.
Anybody else have any questions? Morning, Robbie.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'd like to present the hydrologic conditions report for December 2025. My thanks this month goes out to Paul Buchanan. He sent this great photo of Big Shoals over on the upper Suwannee River. Paul took a little recon out there around the 4th of December and snapped us some low water photos up in that area. On the 4th of December, the White Springs gauge read 47.6 CFS, which put it at the below normal range, the 10th to 25th percentile. And we can definitely see that out here with some of these lower, it was exposed limestone and lower water levels as well. I do recall being out here back in 2011, right before Debbie came through in 2012, and you could just about walk across this without even getting wet at that point. So we do still see some flow through here, looking pretty good, but it is a representative photo of what we have been dealing with over the past few months with these low water conditions that we've had. And once again, I'd like to thank Paul for this photo, and I think it's also a great way for us to start our December 2025 hydrologic conditions report. All right, rainfall for December 2025, we had a district-wide average of 2.7 inches, which represents 14% lower than that long-term average of 3.2 inches. We did have a deficit at the end of November of 12.9 inches. We did lessen that a little bit, moving that window of time forward. We're now down to 11.5 inches of rainfall deficit ending December 2025. Reason being, December 2024, we only had 1.3 inches of rain. Moving that window of time forward, we did pick up 2.7 inches of rain, so it did help us alleviate some of our deficit that we had accumulated. Taking a look at the map, that 2.5 to 3 inch range in green does encompass the district-wide average for the month, but really it's kind of a tale of two halves for the district. Most of the rainfall occurring in the upper, the northern and western part of our district, the southern and eastern parts of our district, seeing those two categories less than average, that less than 2 inches in the light blue color and the 2 to 2.5 inch range in the darker blue color. On the flip side of that, 3 to 3.5 inches in orange, 3.5 to 4 inches in red. And then we did have some areas of more than 4 inches of rain in December, and those includes areas of Taylor, Suwannee, Hamilton, Madison, and Jefferson, and down into Lafayette counties. And that's in that pink color of more than 4 inches of rainfall for the month of December 2025. Our biggest rainmaker for the month was December 5th through the 7th. We actually had 1.9 inches of rainfall as a district-wide average for those 3 days. So that represents about 68% of our total for the month coming from these 3 days. The 1.5 to 2 inch range does encompass the district-wide average for the month. The lower amounts of rainfall down in Levy County, Alachua County, Bradford County, even a little strip over from Jefferson through Taylor County as well. The higher end rainfall, we had 2 to 2.5 inches in orange, 2.5 to 3 inches in red, and we had just a couple little spots up in Hamilton County that actually showed more than 3 inches of rainfall, and that's in that pink color on the map. This is our departure from normal precipitation. This is from the 13th of December through the 11th of January. It does not include that rainfall that I just spoke about. But we do have two categories in our district currently, 1 to 2 inches of rainfall deficit kind of in the center part here of our district, and then 2 to 3 inches of rainfall deficit in that darker orange color kind of on the outskirts of our district at this point in time. I wanted to step back and kind of take a look at how did we get here for our rainfall deficit. Now, as I mentioned, we had 2.7 inches of rain in December 2025. December 2024, that was our 1.3 inches of rain that we got during that time period. But what really the take-home message from this is, Out of the past 13 months, only 3 months have been above average rainfall-wise. That's January, March, and May of 2025. Everything else has been below average. That average is that dashed line you see there in the middle. And that includes our wetter times, our wetter months, June, July, August, and September, failed to meet those average amounts of rainfall for the long term as well. And also, I did want to point out that just over 1/10 of an inch of rainfall that we got in November as well. It's hard to see in that map, or in this graphic, but it is there. Streamflow conditions for December 2025 really showing us, that we have been drier on the hydrologic side. We've got most of our gauges in that below normal, that 10th to 25th percentile to begin and end the month of December. A few exceptions on here, of course. New River, Worthington Springs, and Graham, all in the Santa Fe Basin, were much below normal to begin and end the month. That's in that less than 10th percentile of flow. And we did have some that were actually in the normal range, that 25th to 75th percentile, and that includes the Finn Holloway and the Swanee River at Branford. They were just enough on December 31st flow-wise to actually make it just over that 25th percentile, so that's why they got the blue color assigned. And then also I wanted to point out South Georgia, kind of seeing the same thing we are as well. They're very, very dry, very low stream flow conditions as well in that area. Upper Florida and aquifer levels for the end of November, I wanted to show this to compare with what we have for December. But what we started seeing was that below 10th percentile kind of making its way into our maps. We had 9 wells throughout the district that were in that red color. And those include wells in Jefferson, Taylor, Madison, Lafayette, Dixie, Gilchrist, and even up into Columbia County as well. And that's on top of that 10th to 25th percentile in orange. And I did want to point out that most of our wells, because of that low amount of rainfall in November, were trending down from the previous month. We did still see some areas of normal range in well levels, 25th to 75th percentile across the district, just in various places as well. Fast forward 1 month, really not much of a change, very similar map to what we saw back in November. Still have about 9 wells that are, excuse me, that are trending below 10th percentile, and those include wells in Jefferson County, Madison County, Lafayette, down into Dixie, Levy, Gilchrist, and then that wells over in Columbia County as well. Still seeing quite an extensive area of 10th to 25th percentile throughout our district as well, but I did want to point out that a lot of our wells are trending upward, and that's just because we got closer to normal rainfall in the month of December versus the previous month of November. I still do see lots of areas of 25th to 75th percentile, some improvement over in Taylor County from November to December, kind of bumping up a category as well. I wanted to show the Upper Florida and aquifer level percentiles. I showed this in the workshop last month, but I thought it was a good revisit to see this again. Of course, the percentiles are on the y-axis with the years in the x-axis. But where we are currently, this is as of Saturday, on the 10th, we are at 23.4%. And we've really been hovering around the 23rd to the 25th percentile for the past few weeks. Of course, back in 2017, when we started getting really concerned about some low water levels across the district, we were at 34.5 in January of 2017. And then just prior to Hurricane Irma coming through a little bit later in 2017, with the lowest we got groundwater percentile-wise in June was 27.2, so we're just slightly below where we were back in 2017. U.S. Drought Monitor, this was released last Thursday, January 8th. A couple of categories that we have in the district currently. We have moderate drought as a D1. See that kind of in the center part of the district here. And then that darker orange color is severe drought. We do see that pretty much all over the other parts of the district. And then we've got extreme drought over in Jefferson County, kind of encompassing the northern part of that as well. I do look for this map to have a little bit of degradation this week because we really haven't gotten the rainfall that we've needed to make some more improvements. But the last time I did present this, we were actually had exceptional drought for the first time in over a decade up in Jefferson and I believe Madison counties as well. We did get enough rain to kind of alleviate that from the latest updates that we've gotten through January 8th. I did also want to mention we are currently still under a La Nina advisory, and that's expected to continue for the next for foreseeable future, next few months or so. But we do have a 75% chance of switching over into the El Nino Southern Oscillation neutral conditions sometime from January to March. So we've got about a 3-month window there where we can look to switch over into those more neutral conditions. With that said, though, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's seasonal outlook for January through March does have us at about a 50 to 60% chance of below normal rainfall probabilities from January through March. And then also a 50 to 60% chance in our district of above normal temperature probabilities for January through March as well. All right, our December 2025 summary, we had a rainfall amount of 2.7 inches, about 14% lower than that long-term average of 3.2 inches. As I mentioned, we did have a rainfall deficit at the end of November of 12.9 inches. We did alleviate some of that, moving that window of time forward and picking up just a little bit more rainfall this year than we had last year. We're now down to 11.5 inches of rainfall deficit for the past year. District-wide upper Florida and aquifer levels stayed fairly the same with rounding, around the 24th percentile at the end of November, about the same in December as well. But we did see some decreases across our monitored wells at a median of about 0.2 of a foot. And as I pointed out on one of the graphics, as of January 10th, this past Saturday, groundwater is sitting at the 23rd percentile, so we have fallen just slightly since the end of December. La Nina conditions are persisting and expected to persist a little bit longer, but we do have a 75% chance of switching back into the El Nino Southern Oscillation neutral conditions sometime in January to March. And finally, we do have moderate drought, severe drought throughout the district as well. But Jefferson County, northern Jefferson County has extreme drought designated at this point in time. And as I mentioned, the update this week, we should see a little bit more degradation in our area. Some more spreading of the severe drought and possible extreme drought as well. Mr. Chair, I'll take any questions that the board may have.
Anyone have any questions? Robbie, I noticed on your graph there that last January, we got somewhere around 4 inches of rainfall. If we don't get some significant rainfall the balance of this month, our deficit's going to go up for February meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, that's correct. Yes, you're absolutely right. When we move that window of time forward, we're going to lose that. And if we don't replace this amount here with something similar, our deficit is going to go up. That is for sure.
Okay, thank you, Robbie.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robbie. So with that, I'll bring up item number 12 on Water Resources, page 1. I do have a presentation here. There's a advisory in your board packet. So basically what we're recommending here is a water shortage advisory. That's the first level of water shortage. It is a non-regulatory advisory seeking for people to take discretionary action to reduce their water use, but also something that we can use to communicate to our permittees to make them aware of the dry conditions and so that they can start making their plans for the potential for regulatory measures if the conditions don't improve. So I'll just step through kind of the components of the advisory here, and then I'd be happy to take any questions. So as Robbie mentioned, we're observing drier than average conditions for the surface, the land surface, groundwater, and also our surface water systems. We certainly see that there's a need for a heightened water conservation awareness throughout the district, and also encouraging users to reduce water use, defer water-intensive activities, and conserve water to the maximum extent possible, and also for users to make a proactive plan for the possibility of an extended drought and the possibility that we'll need to take additional actions. So again, as I mentioned, we're asking users to reduce water use and conserve water. We're asking them to make their plans to be ready for the potential that there would be additional regulatory measures coming in if we have to advance this water shortage advisory to a regulatory phase 2 water shortage order. We're asking landscape irrigation users to reduce their irrigation to the maximum extent practical. And then also, we're asking the public to defer planting or any other, like watering, any things that are requiring watering for establishment or water-intensive efforts that can be deferred until conditions improve. Also, similarly for golf courses, we would ask for them to defer overseeding while the advisory is in effect. Again, deferring water-intensive activities until conditions improve. We're continuing to monitor hydrologic conditions, and again, if we get into an extended severe drought, we would be returning with recommendations for a Phase 2 water shortage order. At that point, there would be regulatory measures involved, and so the district rules would guide the process for implementing a regulatory water shortage order, and we would step through that process in the event that we have to proceed into a regulatory measure. So again, just kind of stepping through where we are in the process. Currently, we're recommending a water shortage advisory. It's a non-regulatory, but it does allow for us to inform our permittees and the general public of the dry conditions and make recommendations for them to reduce and defer water use. In the event of a persistent drought, we would be looking at potentially advancing into a water shortage of a Phase 2 water shortage. And again, at that point, there would be, in addition to the voluntary measures, there would be regulatory measures, and we would have to go through the process that is laid out in our rules for proceeding to a Phase 2 water shortage. I'm happy to take any questions. The recommendation would be to approve Water Shortage Advisory Order number 26-001.
Dr. Brown, would the prediction for the next 3 months of being warmer and drier, we're certainly not too far away from a Phase 2, I would think.
No, sir.
Can you just briefly explain to me the difference in the Phase 2, where some of it's voluntary and some of it's regulatory? Is that commercial to residential, or what is that?
So we will need to go use type by use type. We have some guidance in the rules in terms of the implementation of a water shortage, and basically we're guided to distribute the burden of the restrictions equitably among water users relative to their impact on the sources experiencing the shortage. And so we would be going use type by use type and looking at what types of measures. For sure, we would be targeting inefficient over efficient, so trying to reduce inefficient water uses as a priority, or less efficient. Inefficient water use would not be permitted in the first place, but less efficient usages would potentially be targeted. We could also look at the reduction in irrigation frequency, or maintaining the 1 day per week irrigation restrictions into the growing season for landscape irrigation. Those are the types of things, but we need to make sure that we're going use type by use type and ensuring that there is a consideration for being equitable amongst the different water users.
Do we, in these type of conditions, do we entertain shutting off end guns altogether?
So one of the components that was recommended back in the drought in 2012 was the limiting of high-pressure irrigation to only at night, only restricting it to certain windows where evaporation would be minimized. And so that would certainly be something that would be on consideration this time, and certainly limiting high-pressure irrigation to when it would be least likely to evaporate, or shortening the time window would be something that would be considered. It would be brought to the board.
In our tenure as a district, have we ever had a Phase 2 or 3?
In 2012.
It did go to 2?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Brown, is it fair to assume that based on the forecast over the next 3 months, is it fair to say that we'll go to Phase 2 pretty quickly?
If the forecast conditions maintain and we don't receive the rainfall in February and March, I would anticipate at the latest coming back in March with a recommendation. In the event that we do get some of those winter recharge events that we have gotten in the past, then again, that's where we have to reassess where it puts the aquifer relative to where we see ourselves. I mean, because we know we have that cyclical demand cycle that we talked about in December. So certainly our demand goes up in the summertime. And so that's what we have to balance out as we move forward. But what this advisory does now is it allows us to formally communicate with all of our permittees to make them aware of the dry conditions and ask them to start making their plans for if we end up in a persistent drought going into the growing season.
And I know you provided that information in your presentation last month that I did review, but in 2011, 2012, could you compare where we were at then versus where we're at today with their aquifer level?
So I don't know if, Robbie, if you have a graphic in yours that helps show that well. We are seeing dry conditions, but we are not seeing the dry conditions that we saw in 11 and 12, but obviously that's not quantitative. Do you have a?
I realize that, and I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. I was
I think we
just,
can switch back to that other presentation. Do you want to come?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment before he does this.
Certainly.
Our technology has improved a lot since 2011, 2012 as far as irrigation goes. So we are in a better spot, but the end guns are about 65% effective in watering, whereas the drip irrigation is getting close to 95% effective. So I think we're in a better spot than we were back then, but we still need all the rain we can get. Technology has improved.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, follow what Mr. Sessions, and that's part of our outreach effort. And producers, by and large, producers have already contracted by this point, ag producers, on what acreage that they will be planting. But to that extent, they still have the option that they may choose, some producers may choose not to plant that in-gun acreage from a production standpoint with because it costs, that's a cost operating that irrigation system. And so to that end, that's why we want to make people aware with this advisory and our outreach efforts with our growers and permittees to that extent. And there will be letters going out to all of our permittees about if the board chooses to approve this advisory, that the board will have done that going forward.
well, I would encourage the communication team to get as much information out there as possible, because not everybody knows what goes on in these board meetings. So, again, before we have to demand that they reduce, knowing ahead of time that may be coming is going to be important.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
along with what the chair said, I just want to, the communication team needs to know whatever resources that they need, that the board's behind them, and this could move rapidly in between board meetings. So at this point, if it be the pleasure of the board, not of approval, that the education and outreach can go to work at full speed.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, I do have some slides that I could show per your
Okay.
question.
Thank you, Rob.
Sure thing. Let me get through here. Let's see. So this is where we were in November. Okay. So this is where we were in November. I did just show this in the hydro report just a few minutes ago. We were at 24.4% last month. This is back in 2016. About that time period, for the 27th of 2016, we were at 35.1%. Do see some red in these maps as well. Do see some orange also. December was pretty similar in 2016 to November. Did see some more areas of the orange and red in here as well. Now, this is where we started to get kind of concerned in May of 2017, because we had some areas, we had lots of wells down in the southern part of our district in that below 10th percentile. And then even over in the kind of northern and eastern part, we're still seeing some of that 10th to 25th percentile. Now, looking back at 2011, lots more red in this graphic. So this was from November of 2011, we were at the 5th percentile. Still at the 5th percentile in December as well, and you can kind of see some degradation over here in Dixie and Levy County as well. This is just before Tropical Storm Debbie came through with almost our entire district in that extremely low, that less than 10th percentile. I believe we did have post-tropical storm Beryl come through, and I believe if I'm not mistaken, it came up this way. It didn't really have much of an impact on our well levels at all. It was Debbie, when Debbie came through, sitting over us and giving that extreme amount of rainfall that actually did help us out of this 1% groundwater level that we had in 2012.
That was the picture I was looking for, Robbie. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Robbie, excuse me, just for clarity, the percentiles, those are based on historical levels. It's not like the cup is at 1%.
Correct. So each well has a period of record that, the max and the mins, and it's all ranked levels throughout. And so when they take this, they take all of the wells that we use in the report and take an average of that. So it's an average percentile across the district.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and thank you, Tyler, for switching back to that prior presentation.
So, Dr. Brown, are you asking for board approval of your advisory?
Yes, sir, the staff recommendation is to approve Water Shortage Advisory Order number 26-001.
Make that motion.
Chair.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Water Shortage Advisory Order number 26-001. Is there any discussion? Not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, sir. So we'll be communicating with our committees and making them aware formally of the dry conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, those in attendance, good morning. For business and community services, we have 13 items on this morning's agenda, and these are items number 13 through 25. Item number 13 is a facilities report, and I'd just like to say, as you can see when you're coming in, everything is moving along well. We're about 80% complete with the main building. Would like to report that this project remains on time and on budget. Ben normally gives this report, but he's still out taking care of his wife and daughter. I spoke with Ben last night, and I'm happy to report that his daughter is doing extremely well. So look forward to getting him back to work. Items number 14, 15, 16, 24, and 25 were approved by way of the consent agenda, so thank you for those approvals. Items number 17 and 19 are informational items. So the first item for your consideration and approval will be item number 18. This is in reference to some rules, so Warren will be presenting this item, and it starts on BCS page 19. Item number 20 will be presented by our Division Director of Resource Management, Mr. Leroy Marshall. And then our final three items, items number 21, 22, and 23, will be presented by our Office of Environmental Projects Chief, Ms. Mary Diaz. So Warren.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good morning. Happy New Year. I don't know if you noticed, but in the resource management report for this board meeting, so a couple months ago, there's no rulemaking going on. That's because I cleared the slate for what I'm bringing you today, which is item number 18 found on page BCS 19. So if you recall, when I brought you the annual regulatory plan last fall, I updated you about new legislation in the 2025 session requiring all state agencies to conduct a comprehensive review of all of their rules over the next 5 years. And for us, it's 106 rules. Today, I'm bringing you the results of the 2025-2026 review of all 22 rules in Chapter 40B3, Florida Administrative Code, which is the permitting of well construction. A summary of this review has already been submitted to the legislature as required in statute and includes proposed substantive amendments to 9 and the repeal of 3 rules. And keep in mind, 10 of these 12 rules haven't been touched since 1999, so they're pretty vintage, kind of like me. So technical changes are currently being made to 5 rules, and 5 rules will remain unchanged. Rulemaking to implement the substantive amendments must begin before April 1st of this year, and rule repeals must be completed by April 1st of this year. This comprehensive rulemaking request, again, includes the publishing of the notice of rule development, the publishing of the notice of proposed rules, filing of the proposed rules, and any changes that do not change the intent of the rulemaking with the Florida Department of State if no objections are received. It also includes authorizing the executive director to provide the minor violation certification. The purpose for each rule amendment and repeal has been provided in your board materials, and I have, thank you for putting those up, Tyler. And once complete, this rulemaking accomplishes a personal goal of finishing some badly needed rulemaking in our water well rules. I would like to give a shout out, Hugh already mentioned it, I got a lot of help from David King, the water use, water well program administrator, and as well as our well inspector, Kevin Jones. So they were immensely helpful in bringing this in for a landing, as well as our attorney, helping me with a lot of the language. I workshopped my initial cut of these rule amendments with the North Central Florida Water Well Association at their October meeting, and will be bringing this cleaner rule language back to them this month, actually this week, Thursday evening. As I always do, I'll be keeping the association updated as the rulemaking proceeds during the year. And additionally, I've discussed the new general permit by rule for site assessment wells with the environmental drillers that frequently work in our district. And as you would expect, it has their support. All amendments are intended to simplify existing rule language, clearly articulate permit conditions and rule violations, expand exemptions, and provide lower cost alternatives. Therefore, staff have determined that the requested rulemaking will have no adverse impact on the regulated public. So with that, the recommendation is to authorize staff to amend 9 rules and repeal 3 rules in Chapter 40B3 Florida Administrative Code, permitting of well construction. I'll take any questions if you have any.
I did note that you had communicated with the Water Well Association and would continue to do so as this rule is implemented. And as far as you know, there's no negative impact or no negative comment from that group?
Mr. Chair, they appreciate the cleanup. They absolutely do. It's, what I've been able to do is, ahead of this major undertaking, I've incorporated a lot of the DEP rules that have been in existence. And so all the repetitive language that we had in ours is being removed. So all they have to do is look at the DEP rule, and ours just has anything that's different. And it's not repetitive.
Very good.
Appreciate your effort on this. I know that was no easy task.
Be fun.
Yeah, Warren, I think it's great taking on this task and project. I think, these rules, they can kind of accumulate over time, and if you don't go back and look at them and see how they apply, you can end up in a situation that's not desirable for anybody. So excellent work, and sounds like it's going to be a benefit to us and the regulated public.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, Warren.
I think I need a,
Oh, you do need a motion?
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Chapter 40B-3 of Florida Administrative Code rulemaking process. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Here this morning to give you an update on our FEMA flood risk review. We have 3 that we are working through. The first is the Santa Fe. As you guys remember, we went to a flood risk review a couple years ago. We are starting to see some of the results from the detailed studies that we're doing in the cities. When we get a little bit further along, we'll be bringing those to the board, just so you can see those, and then we'll be scheduling our next round of meetings for the Santa Fe. For the Wakasasa, as you know, we finished up that flood risk review last year. We're starting to see some of the results from the agreed upon changes to the inputs for the modeling, and we are, as we usually do, are seeing some reduction in the flood zones, or the proposed flood zones. So we will continue to move forward on those, and when we start getting, again, further along, we'll be bringing some of those results to the board. The next one that we have is the flood risk review for the Suwannee. As a reminder, this is a study for the Suwannee, for the entire Suwannee, from the Florida-Georgia coast, Florida-Georgia border all the way down to the coast. So what we are proposing to do for this flood risk, we're proposing to do it a little bit different than we've done the previous flood risk reviews, in that previously the district would do 2 meetings. We would do 1 meeting with the counties and any stakeholders that the counties felt needed to be there, and then we would do a public meeting with the public. We're going to change that up a little bit, in that the district is going to host the county meetings like we always have, but instead of hosting the public meetings, we're going to have the counties host those public meetings. The district will provide any information, any documentation, anything to help the counties host those meetings, but the district will not be hosting those meetings. And therefore, the district will not be going around to all the counties and cities as we've done before. A lot of that time that we spent preparing people for the public meetings, the district won't be doing that. What we will be doing is working with the counties and giving the counties the ability or the choice to have the flood risk reviews, whether they want to have them or not. But we will provide all the information, all the mapping, all the documentation that's needed, all the, everything that they need to prepare to set that meeting up. The list of impacted property owners, like everything will be provided to them. But it will be the decision of the county to have those public flood risk review meetings. And so the district will not be hosting them. So that's the way we're going to move forward with the Suwannee. And we just wanted to give you guys a heads up as we start to prepare for that. And we think that's going to be early summer when we're ready to do those. With that, any questions?
Board have any questions? Thank you, sir.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm here to present a few items for your consideration. The first one can be found on BCS page 28, item 21, and it's in regards to our river directive. The governing board originally adopted the Regional Initiative Valuing Environmental Resources, or RIVER Directive, on October 12, 2012, which provides guidelines to staff for selecting entities requesting cost-share funding to implement projects that improve and protect the district's core mission areas. The directive has been revised and improved twice since then. In the current and past directives, eligibility for funding has been open to the public and other interested entities without a clear indication of what those other entities may apply for. So to eliminate confusion, staff recommends revising this ambiguous language by specifically indicating that nonprofit land conservation trusts are the only non-public entities eligible for river cost share. Additional edits in the directive correct grammatical errors. The red line directive can be found on BCH page 29. This directive will supersede Directive 25-0006. So the recommendation is approval of Governing Board Directive GBD 26-0001 for the Suwannee River Water Management District Regional Initiative Valuing Environmental Resources Cooperative Funding Program. Any questions?
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve GBD 26-001 Regional Initiative Valuing Environmental Resource Cost Share Program Directive Amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary.
The next item for your consideration can be found on BCH page 37, item 22, and it's in regards to the receipt of AWS funds. During the final months of the calendar year 2024, district staff collaborated with local governments and interested stakeholders throughout the 15-county area inviting them to submit alternative water supply or AWS projects. In May 2025, the governing board authorized the executive director to recommend and submit 5 project applications to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for consideration for the AWS funding. In June 2025, the DEP opened the portal for entities to apply directly to them. FDEP has allocated $50 million in AWS funding for 14 projects across the entire state. Within the district, 3 projects were funding, totaling $4,262,195. Included in your board package is a list of projects approved for AWS funding. Can we go to the list, Tyler? Thank you so much. The district will receive $3,005,000 to increase monitoring and reporting reliability and accuracy for consumptive water users through the implementation of monitoring equipment and automated report. The district will also receive $750,000 to investigate water available during high flow events and alternative resources to provide recharge and storage options through AWS feasibility studies. The remaining project will be directly funded from DEP to the city of Live Oak, and it's for the replacement of a 6-inch injection well along with the construction of a stormwater management facility. These projects support district-wide implementation efforts, and the funds are included in our fiscal year 25-26 budget. So the recommendation is to authorize the executive director to enter into agreements with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to receive alternative water supply funds, and to enter into agreements with local cooperative entities to implement these projects. Questions?
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to allow the executive director to enter an agreement with DEP and local cooperating entities to receive the alternative water supply grant funds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you so much. The next item for your consideration can be found on BCS page 39, item 23, and it's in regards to the receipt of Springs funds. Same effort during the final months of the calendar year 2024, district staff collaborated with local government and other entities to, throughout our entire district, inviting them to submit springs and water restoration projects. In May 2025, the governing board authorized the executive director to submit 10 project applications to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. In June 2025, the DEP opened the application portal to submit projects directly, from entities to submit projects directly to DEP. 13 additional projects within the district were submitted through the portal and reviewed by DEP and district staff. The DEP has allocated $50 million in Springs grant funding to 23 projects across the state. Within the district, 6 projects were funded, totaling $16,144,000. Can we go to the list, Tyler? Included in your package is a list of projects approved for Springs funding. The district will receive $3 million for our agricultural Springs protection cost share program, and the remaining projects will be funded from DEP to the local entities directly. The projects on this first slide are projects that were funded that were applied through our portal. These projects we reviewed and then we sent to DEP. They were included on the June 2025, on our application that we brought to you and we submitted to DEP. The next slide has the projects that were applied for directly to DEP from these entities without going through our portal, and they're on here for informational. So the agricultural springs program will be implemented district-wide, and Tall Timbers will contract directly with DEP to purchase a conservation easement. These projects support district-wide implementation efforts, and the funds are also included in our fiscal year 25-26 budget. So the recommendation is to authorize the executive director to enter into agreements with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to receive Springs funding and to enter into agreements with local cooperative entities to implement these projects.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve and allow the executive director to enter an agreement with DEP and local entities to receive spring grant funding. Is there any discussion? Mary, I have one question for you. Those other projects that were submitted directed to EP, are those projects funded? Did they fund those?
Yes, yes, sir. The ones shown on the slide, yes, sir, on the second slide.
Yeah, they look like some pretty good projects there, a couple of them, anyway.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So those did not come through our portal, but they submitted directly to DP and they were funded, yes.
Thank you, Mary. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. A few announcements this morning from the Division of Outreach and Operations. The first is that we are, in response to the board's comments last month, have been reviewing our cooperative management agreements per your direction to make sure that we have adequate language to allow the district to continue those agreements or reconsider those agreements based on performance. And so we feel like we've got a really good start on that language, but we'll work with Tommy to see if it needs to be tightened up or enhanced based on the comments that y'all have provided. But wanted to let you know that we are working on that, and it looks like we're in a pretty good position so far. The next thing that I have is the district is gearing up for its 2026 Land Management Review Team that we're going to host a little earlier this year, hopefully at the very beginning of March. And so we'll be contacting y'all when we put that out for public notice, and we'll let you know when that date is finalized so that hopefully those of you who are available can attend. We certainly appreciate our board's support. And finally, before we get to our items, Troy and I appreciate and we hear your comments relative and guidance on outreach and operations relative to the advisory and Water First. Troy can speak to the plan we have regarding the water shortage advisory that he has prepared in anticipation of your approval today. And we have worked with our partners relative to outreach on Water First, and we think that we are all headed in the same direction. So we're excited to share more information about that project and what the district and our partners are going to do. With that, we have 6 items for you to consider today. Item number 26 is for informational purposes. Troy is going to present item number 27 to you. Item number 28 is for informational purposes. You approved item 29 on consent, which we appreciate. Item number 30 is for informational purposes as well, and item number 31 will be presented by Lorna Radcliffe, our land management chief. With that, we'll get started with Troy.
Troy, I've been a little remiss in taking a break. Would you mind for us to take a break for just a minute
I'll
before?
wait right here till we get back.
So the board will take a break, and we'll be back in 10 minutes, 10:17.
I believe you, buddy. Well, on my machine, no squeaky at all.
Thank you for the delay, Troy. Now go ahead, buddy.
Sorry, Troy.
You're very welcome. Like I told Mr. Sessions, some things are more important than me getting up here to speak. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I've got one informational item for you today, but before I get to that, I kind of wanted to follow up on what Caitlin was talking about in terms of both the water shortage advisory and the Water First project in terms of outreach and communications to the general public. So for the last month or so, we've been putting out some water conservation messaging through both our social media and traditional media, but we have been preparing. We assumed that we would see the water shortage advisory this month approved, so thank you for that. But we've been developing materials that you will see as early as this afternoon in terms of typical social media, but we also know we need to reach more people than just through social media. So you'll see press releases, more traditional media interviews, also some PSAs with our local radio stations, digital radio like Spotify and Pandora. So we will be working quite hard over the next, the foreseeable future, as long as this drought is in effect, to ensure that our public understand what the water shortage advisory means. If we need to go to phase 2, we'll be prepared for that as well. But we want to make sure that the public understands what that means to them and how that affects them. In terms of Water First North Florida, as Caitlin said, we're having to work with, additional other agencies here. We're working with both St. John's and DEP on messaging. In terms of Water First North Florida, you will be seeing that very soon as well. We understand that there's a lot of misinformation out there about the project. We want to get to correcting that quickly, help people understand what this project is, why it's important to the water future of our district and this region, as a whole, and also how it can benefit, our water resources into the future. So you'll be seeing a lot of that over the next several months. And we can, if you would like, we can report back to you on exactly what was implemented and what kind of feedback we've gotten and results we've seen as well.
Thank you, Troy. I personally would like to hear what your feedback is once you get some of those pieces out.
Yes, sir. We'll be glad to bring it back at a future meeting for you. Moving on to our informational item today, this is for the 2026-2030 strategic plan. In lieu of the district developing a water management plan and the water management plan annual report pursuant to section 373.0362 Florida statutes, the district has selected the option to develop a 5-year strategic plan pursuant to paragraph 373.0362E Florida statutes. The strategic plan is included in the district's consolidated annual report due on March 1st. Every year, we have to submit that to Tallahassee. It goes to the governor, the president of Senate, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Office of Economic Development and Demographic Research, and the Department of Environmental Protection. The district has 4 areas of responsibility, which include water supply, water quality, natural systems, and flood protection. To meet these responsibilities, the district strategic plan establishes priorities and goals for the next 5 years and identifies strategies to accomplish these goals. An annual work plan report is also required as an addendum to the strategic plan, and that will be brought to the board as an informational item at the end of the fiscal year and included in the consolidated annual report. Overall changes to this year's plan were minor. We do plan for a full refresh of it next year, so the report you guys are seeing this year, next year's will look very, very different to that. It is currently on our website. It is available for public comment and review. Specific actions and expenditures are considered and approved separately from, but in support of the plan. The annual updates are made into the plan based on operational needs or policy changes. And you can see the link there, but as I said, it is also available on the district website under the district tab for review.
Robin, do we need to update that strategic plan? Is that a motion item or?
No, this just an informational item, sir.
Okay.
I will be back next month with a couple of things for you to approve, though, that are related to this.
Thank you, Troy.
All right, thank y'all.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, board
morning,
members. I'll be presenting item number 31 today, which is on OPS page 18. The 2006 Florida Legislature committed the state to the preservation of hunting lands and hunting opportunities for the future. In October of 2023, the Governor DeSantis reaffirmed this commitment by encouraging public land managers to open lands for hunting to the greatest extent possible. Currently, the district has approximately 115,000 acres, or 71% of its lands, open to hunting through the Wildlife Management Area Program that is in coordination with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. Specific dates, bag limits, and other hunting regulations for each tract are established by FWC based on the tract size, location, and habitat. The actual footprint of the WMA may not consist of the whole tract, and specifics would be identified on a tract-by-tract basis. Participation in the WMA system provides management of the hunt program by FWC. Staff conducted a thorough review of all its district lands not currently enrolled in the WMA system to assess suitability. Site visits were performed to evaluate specific hunting areas relative to boundaries, infrastructure, inholdings, and etc. Further, acquisition and deed records were evaluated for each proposed site to ensure that there were no prohibitions on hunting. Inclusion of these tracts in the WMA system could add an additional 17,000 acres of public hunting opportunities to residents and visitors of Florida. The addition of these tracts to the WMA system may require rule ratification by FWC and would be implemented in phases over the next several years pursuant to FWC rules. Each year, the district reports the amount of acreage open to hunting through a no net loss hunting lands report pursuant to Florida statutes. It is provided to FWC. Further, all acquisitions and exchanges are evaluated for hunting opportunities. You'll see on the map in our northwest region of the district, these are the lands that we're proposing to add. In our northeast, Upper Suwannee, Middle Suwannee area, these are the locations we're proposing to add. In the southwest, we only have Steinhatchee Falls tract that hasn't been included yet. And then in our southeast region, there's a few tracts around Lower Suwannee and then Gilchrist County. So overall, that's how it looks for the district. So any tracts that are not in the WMA or recommended for the WMA are being evaluated for other hunting opportunities, and that will be brought back to you at a later time. So the recommendation is to authorize the executive director to offer additional tracts of district-owned land to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission for inclusion within the wildlife management areas.
I'll entertain a motion.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to allow the executive director to enter into negotiation with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission for inclusion of additional tracts of land into the Wildlife Management Area Program. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord.
Chair, that concludes our items.
You?
Well, thank you again, Mr. Chair, and appreciate everybody being here today. As I stated earlier, it allowed us to have a meeting with a quorum, and so thank you all for doing that, and especially thank Mr. Charles and Mr. Thompson for filling in as needed with that. I'll be brief. We don't have any workshop or committee meetings today to follow up with. The 2026 legislative session is starting today. Tyler Winburn is in Tallahassee, and he'll be up there for the remainder of the session itself. Should be a very engaging session this year on a number of fronts. Some pertaining to the district here will be our involvement with the St. John's and Department of Environmental Protection on the Lower Santa Fe and Ichetuckney rule ratification. And certainly associated with that, as far as the prevention recovery strategy, is the Water First project, which you've already heard some about with it, as well as some of the other projects that we are looking at. I mentioned earlier about the various funding sources that were as part of the agenda, and our appreciation to the governor and the Commissioner of Ag. Also, Department of Environmental Protection for those grant funding opportunities that we have. We'll mention, and some of you are probably aware, the governor was at Steinhatchee last week relative to, as Mary mentioned, on the Springs projects. Those projects that were not necessarily funded through the district itself. Some of them were submitted through our portal, some of them were not. And certainly we do provide technical support for our cooperators in our district with that. But the governor's announcements last week primarily had to do with community development block grants and also the rural infrastructure. And the majority of his announcements and awards that he announced were for rural communities, many of which were in our area. Our area on the CDBG grants, they received or will be receiving over $117 million for infrastructure projects similar to what you saw listed on that table earlier relative to water supply and also wastewater transportation projects as well within the cities and some of the other infrastructure needs. And then there was $705,000 that he announced relative to rural infrastructure program itself. And again, many of those, we can get you a list if you're interested in all of them, but many of those were communities within our district relative to that. Did want to let you know that the chair is up before the Senate and committees this session for confirmation. We're not anticipating any issue with that. And then also that Tyler will be working with the governor's office on appointment for Mr. Sessions and Mr. Keith for this year with it. And with that, that's all the questions, or that's all the comments that I have right now, Mr. Chair. If the board has any questions that I can answer.
And that additional funding that the governor announced for the Springs project, was there any WC3 money in that?
I don't recall any specific, not last week specifically dedicated. Cedar Key had some funding associated with their water supply and their wastewater plant that would dovetail into that WC3 project as part of it. But I don't recall Bronson, the city of Bronson, receiving anything specifically about that. Now, they did receive some funding at a different time, a bit earlier in the fall of last year, that they did receive some funding from DEP associated with that.
The lobbying for a project such as that, how is that transpired? I mean, I've had a couple of conversations with some legislators about it, but is that something that Tyler, does he?
He doesn't necessarily lobby for it. He does he makes them, tries to make them aware of it whenever he's meeting with them, relative to projects in our area, particularly a regional project like that one. And he does try to provide information about those projects. He reaches out to staff here whenever he gets questions, not only about that project, but anything else that he may get questions about that he needs technical responses on with it. But there are, to my knowledge, I think that the county commissioners have done some lobbying for that. Certainly Cedar Key has reached out as part of their effort for that project also.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Does anybody else with the board have any comments, other comments, or discussion that we need to bring before ourselves at this time? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Motion, second. We stand adjourned.